The bedwetting pretty bride. In the lively city of Accra, there lived a young woman named Mary. She was known far and wide for her breathtaking beauty and high status. Her father was a successful businessman, and Mary had grown up in the lap of luxury, surrounded by wealth and privilege. Mary's beauty was the talk of the town. Men from all walks of life sought her hand in marriage, but Mary had a cruel streak. She would ridicule and humiliate anyone she deemed unworthy of her attention. "Do you think someone like you could ever deserve me?" she would sneer. Her arrogance was unmatched, and many who approached her left with broken hearts and bruised egos. One day, a man named John arrived in Accra. He was tall, handsome, and as wealthy as Mary's family. John was confident, and unlike the other men, he didn't fawn over Mary. Instead, he charmed her with his intelligence and poise. For the first time, Mary felt drawn to someone, and before long, they were engaged. Their wedding was the grandest the city had ever seen. Mary wore a gown that sparkled like the stars, and their reception was held in the most luxurious hotel in the city. But Mary's fairy tale was about to take a dark turn. The nightmare begins. On their first night together, Mary woke up in horror. The expensive sheets were soaked, and she realized she had wet the bed. Panicked, she tried to hide it, but John noticed her frantic behavior. "What's wrong with you?" he asked. "I'm sorry," Mary whispered, her face burning with shame. I don't know what happened." John frowned but said nothing. He thought it was an isolated incident, but when it happened again the next night, his patience began to wear thin. By the fourth night, John lost his temper. "What kind of woman wets the bed like a child?" he shouted. "With all your beauty, you are nothing but a disgrace. I didn't marry you to clean up after this filth." Mary's heart shattered. The man who had once charmed her was now filled with contempt. He mocked her relentlessly, calling her names and avoiding her altogether. Mary, who had always held her head high, now found herself broken and alone. Unable to bear the humiliation, Mary decided to leave. She packed a small bag and, without telling anyone, began a journey to find a cure. The city's healers had failed her, but she had heard whispers of an old woman deep in the forest who could solve any mystery. The journey was grueling. Mary, who had never walked more than a few blocks in her life, now had to trek through dense forest and rough terrain. She slept under trees, shivering in the cold, and ate whatever fruits she could find. Her once perfect hands were now blistered, and her fine clothes were torn and dirty. As she wandered, she came across people in need. A mother struggling to carry water, a lost child crying in the woods, an old man with an injured leg. For the first time in her life, Mary felt the urge to help. She shared her meager food, carried heavy loads, and comforted the lost. Each act of kindness brought her closer to the old woman. Finally, after weeks of hardship, Mary reached a small clearing in the forest. There stood a simple hut made of mud and straw. The old woman, frail but with eyes full of wisdom, welcomed Mary inside. "I've been expecting you," she said, her voice calm. Mary fell to her knees. "Please, help me," she begged. "I've lost everything, my dignity, my happiness. I just want to be normal again." The old woman studied her. "Do you remember me?" she asked. Mary froze. She did remember. Years ago, she had humiliated a poor old woman selling bread on the street. The woman had accidentally bumped into Mary, causing her to drop her purse. Enraged, Mary had shouted insults, calling her useless and filthy. She had even kicked the woman's basket of bread into the gutter. "I cursed you that day," the old woman said. "Not out of hatred, but to teach you a lesson. You had everything, yet you treated others as if they were nothing." Tears streamed down Mary's face. "I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please, forgive me." I will do anything to make amends. The old woman's gaze softened. Your journey here has already changed you. The curse is lifted, but remember, your actions from now on must honor the kindness you've learned. Mary returned to the city a changed woman. She apologized to John, who, seeing her transformation, also softened his heart. Mary used her wealth and influence to help the less fortunate, opening shelters for the homeless and providing food for the hungry. Her story spread throughout the city, a tale of pride, downfall, and redemption. And though she had once been known as the most beautiful woman in Accra, Mary was now remembered as the kindest.